This video has been prepared to provide you with some basic information and expectations for one main reason. Everyone is entitled to go home safely at the end of the workday. In order to do this, we must keep in mind a few basics. It will go a long way to keeping you safe. If something doesn't look or seem right, if something looks unsafe, you have the right to speak up and ask questions. You have the right, and employers are required to provide a safe workplace. This video will be broken down into the following 4 sections: worker rights and responsibilities, general rules and policies, personal protective equipment requirements, and specific information on high-risk hazards found on a construction site. Before we go to rights and responsibilities, I would like to take a minute to remind everyone that you should find a copy of this Green Book on all construction sites. The Green Book is the Occupational Health and Safety Act and Construction Regulations 21391. The book is there for you to reference as you wish. However, please understand that the Act and the regulations will be the minimum standard that must be upheld in any workplace. If your employer exceeded any of these regulations, at a minimum, everyone must comply with the higher standard. Let's start off with rights and responsibilities. All workers have 3 basic rights. First, and maybe most important, is the worker's right to refuse unsafe work. If you have any reason to believe that you may be injured while performing a task because of unsafe equipment, the condition in the workplace, or any other reason, you have the right to refuse to do the task. If this is the case, immediately inform your supervisor of the unsafe condition and offer your possible solution. 95% of work refusals can be resolved right here through basic communication. If the situation has been made safe to the worker's satisfaction, work resumes. If the worker's safety concerns have not been resolved to the worker's satisfaction, the health and safety representative must get involved at this point. Upon hearing both sides of the issue, the health and safety representative can offer their opinion in an effort to resolve the work refusal. If the work refusal is not resolved at this point, please contact the company's health and safety manager or a site safety coordinator who should attend the site and assist with a resolution agreeable to both parties. Beyond calling in a corporate health and safety manager, the MOL is the last stop to resolve a work refusal. We do ask that if you have a safety issue, always first report the condition to your site health and safety representative, supervisor, or the corporate health and safety professional to allow them a chance to fix the problem internally, rather than calling the Ministry of Labor inspectors before anyone has been told there's a problem. MOL inspectors should only be called into a project when workers and managers cannot jointly agree and find a solution to their safety issues. The next right is the right to know about hazards in the workplace, actual or potential. This right was further strengthened by WHMIS legislation in the 1980s. WHMIS laws give workers the right to know about hazardous materials they may be exposed to. The basic information contained in WHMIS includes: how will the material harm you, how to protect yourself, what to do in case of an overexposure, such as first aid measures, and lastly, WHMIS provides information on where to get more information if required. The safety laws of the day require all employers to provide hazard information and control measures to workers. The third worker right is the right to participate in health and safety at the workplace. Workers can exercise this right in several ways. First is by simply speaking up about the safety concerns. Talk to the worker health and safety representative on site or your supervisor. The second way is to participate or sit on the health and safety committee and share your ideas on how to improve safety. Don't let anyone take away any of your 3 basic rights. They're yours. Use them when required and as needed. Along with rights, all workers have responsibilities and duties as per the Green Book, such as working in a safe manner that will not endanger yourself or another worker, using or wearing any protective clothing or devices that the job dictates or that your employer or supervisor requires you to wear or use. All workers must report any unsafe or dangerous conditions to their supervisor or to the site supervisor immediately. For example, openings in a floor, missing guardrails, or live electrical wires. These are the type of safety issues we want to know about immediately. All subcontractors and workers are expected to report all accidents and injuries to their immediate supervisor on the day it happened. Also, an accident report must be submitted to the site supervisor or project manager. If accidents are not reported on the day it happened, the company may not accept the accident as happening on their job site, and WSIB may be denied. Workers are not to remove or make ineffective any protected devices required by the Green Book. Workers also must not engage in any horseplay or act in a rough or childish manner. We also want you to report any close calls. Have you ever had a close call that could have seriously injured you? Many of us have. They happen. But everyone must realize that a close call could have been a death. Therefore, all close calls must be reported to supervision. Supervision and health and safety representatives must look at the details of the close call and make recommendations to prevent further incidents. Along with worker responsibilities or duties, employers and supervisors have responsibilities and duties as well, such as providing a safety orientation and safety talks that will spell out the expectations to all supervisors and workers, providing all necessary personal protective equipment, PPE, based on the task being performed, ensuring workers have proper documented training for any task specified. All supervisors must perform weekly inspections to identify dangerous conditions and correcting them before workers could be injured. Workers must be informed of any actual or potentially hazardous conditions that may affect them. Supervisors must ensure that all workers are working in accordance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act and construction regulations. Immediate corrective action must be taken for all dangerous situations. Site supervisors are also responsible for all subcontractors on site as well as all workers. Subcontractor supervisors are responsible for all of their own workers. Some general rules for all personnel entering a construction site include: always check in with the site supervisor the first time you enter a job site. The site supervisor will provide a safety orientation consisting of this video, and they will also make sure you're aware of any actual or potential hazards on site. All personnel who enter site should be provided with specific information such as where the entrance to the site is located, the parking area, the entrance that is to be used for access to the building. Job site hours are typically 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. However, you will be notified if your site hours are different. You will also be given the name of the job site health and safety representative. The site emergency plan, emergency telephone location will be indicated along with the site telephone number, first aid kit location, drinking water, washroom location, any disposal areas, emergency gathering areas, the location of material safety data sheets required under WMIS, and any other specific site hazards. Training requirements for all personnel who enter a construction site include WMIS and fall protection. Training should be dated within 3 years or otherwise as regulated. Supervisors must also be trained to understand the Occupational Health and Safety Act and construction regulations, including their specific responsibilities as a supervisor. Workers must also have certain safety training dealing with specific tasks. Examples include propane handling training for any worker who handles propane tanks and connects or lights construction heaters, or workers who operate power elevated work platforms. These are 2 examples of additional training that is required for workers performing specific tasks. Site management must ensure every construction site with more than 5 workers has a worker health and safety representative who is chosen by the workers to represent their safety concerns to management. Worker health and safety representatives serve a few functions for management: to perform regular inspections on a monthly or more frequent basis to identify sources of danger, immediately report dangerous circumstances back to supervision, make recommendations to supervision and management to improve the health and safety on the job site, to assist with work refusals, and to assist with accident investigations. Site supervisors must ensure a Joint Health and Safety Committee, JHSC, is formed on larger projects of 20 or more workers regularly employed for a period of 3 months or more. You may be elected or asked to participate on the Health and Safety Committee. If you are safety conscious and have an opinion on safety issues that you're willing to share, we would like you to help us make our job sites as safe as possible. Employers must ensure that workplaces are free from harassment or violence or workplace reprisals. However, if you have been harassed, threatened, or physically assaulted, you need to report this situation to your supervisor immediately before it escalates. Employers must have a policy regarding dealing with these types of situations. Most employers have a 3-strike discipline policy regarding non-compliance of safety rules. However, please know, if the safety violation is deemed serious enough, you may be removed from site for a single infraction. Most of the items that we have discussed to this point form the core of a good health and safety program and is referred to as an internal responsibility system, or IRS. This is a system in which workers and managers work together to resolve workplace issues through rights and responsibilities. Only when this system has failed should anyone contact the Ministry of Labor inspectors to assist. A few additional general policies found on most construction sites include a zero-tolerance policy regarding alcohol and non-prescription drugs at the workplace, or also reporting for work while inebriated. Any workers taking prescription medication that could alter your judgment must report this situation to your supervisor prior to starting work, and supervisors must assign work in accordance with the worker's abilities. Smoking is not permitted in any enclosed building with a roof on it or in any other enclosed locations, such as vehicles, site trailers, model homes, etc. Ask for the location of the designated smoking areas on your job site. Distracted workers and cell phone use, including hands-free, is prohibited on any construction site when a worker is driving any vehicle or using any equipment, or when performing a task where their undivided attention is required. You will find caution signs placed at certain areas where there is a higher hazard due to the work being done in the area. Please follow the instructions on these hazard signs. Signs are meant to warn workers about areas that contain additional hazards present, and in some cases will provide specific instructions. Overhead wires, for example. If you or your crew are creating additional hazards, you are required to place caution signs at the entrance to any areas where the additional hazards are present, such as missing guardrails, lifting areas, excavations, and any other similar situations. We would like to talk about personal protective equipment requirements. As you may be aware, the basic personal protective equipment, or PPE, that is mandatory on any construction site includes an unpainted hard hat in good condition with no signs of sun damage or cracks in the outer shell or the suspension liner. CSA green patch safety boots that are also in good condition. Safety boots must also have the orange omega symbol, which means the boots have additional electrical protection. Safety glasses must be worn when you are using a tool or a piece of equipment that has moving or rotating parts and creates dust or flying debris. Hearing protection is required when you are exposed to loud noises or using loud tools that will damage your hearing, such as drills to nail guns, compressors, jackhammers, skill saws, and other heavy equipment. Traffic vests are required by all workers when working with or near excavation equipment or construction vehicles, and when you're signaling a reversing vehicle, and any other time you should be highly visible. Skin protection is required by all workers and includes long pants and a regular t-shirt as a minimum, and possibly more if conditions warrant. And lastly, if you're exposed to more than 20 minutes of sun per day, your employer should be supplying you with SPF 40 sunscreen for your skin protection. Respiratory protection is also needed when there are any respiratory hazards such as dust, vapors, and fumes. Due to the amount of construction injuries and deaths every year, we would like to take some time to review some of the top killer hazards found on a construction site and some control measures. One of the most common hazards on a construction site is a cluttered, messy site, also known as poor housekeeping. Most safety regulations require that you have to clean your work area as necessary and at least once a day, usually at the end. This is very simple. When you find yourself tripping through your own scrap or materials, the area needs to be cleaned. 25 to 30% of all construction accidents are directly attributed to poor housekeeping. Remember, falls are the #1 killer in construction, accounting for approximately 40% of all construction fatalities. Falls happen for many reasons, including falling from roofs, off of open edges of a building, through openings in the floor or roof of a building, off of unguarded scaffolds or work platforms, from ladders, and into open excavations and trenches. Remember, fall protection is broken down into two parts: fall prevention and fall arrest. Fall prevention is usually #1 and consists of properly built guardrails and floor covers that will prevent workers from falling. Fall prevention, as the name indicates, we implement measures to prevent the fall from happening in the first place. Fall arrest systems, if set up and properly adjusted, will safely stop a worker's fall before they hit the ground or a lower level, but they do not prevent a fall from happening. Therefore, on all construction projects, guardrails are the #1 form of fall prevention. Guardrails must be in place at all times. Ontario law requires guardrails whenever a worker is exposed to an open edge or an opening and is exposed to a fall hazard of 8 feet or more. If a guardrail is not reasonably possible to install, then you can proceed with alternative measures such as fall arrest. If you see a missing guardrail, you are responsible to immediately report it to the worker health and safety representative, site supervisor, or to your own supervisor. If a guardrail must be removed, for example, for material access, first the worker must put in an adequate temporary measure, usually fall arrest system. Also, the area must be barricaded and warning signs must be placed to warn other workers of the hazard. All guardrails must consist of a top rail, a mid rail, and a toe board to prevent tools and materials from falling off of the edges. The top rail must be approximately 1 meter above the floor, and guardrails must be built strong enough to stop a worker from falling through. If you see a poorly constructed guardrail, you are required by law to report the situation back to your supervisor immediately. Floor covers can be used on openings that are too small to place a guardrail around. Covers must be strong enough for the purpose, completely cover the opening, and identify it as being a cover and secure in place. Regulations require that any worker who cannot be protected by guardrails or floor covers must wear a fall arrest harness tied off to an adequate attachment point, for example, when framing floors or working from roofs. Make sure the leg straps, the chest strap, and body adjustment are adjusted properly in order to avoid serious injury in the event of a fall. The D-ring should be in the middle of your upper back. And lastly, attachment points for a typical harness system must be 18.5 feet clearance to the ground to ensure that the worker doesn't hit the ground. Ladders must always be used with caution. Always start out by choosing the correct ladder for the job, which includes a proper size ladder. Make sure it's in good condition, and always do an inspection and make sure it's labeled grade 1 or better, and make sure that it's set up on a firm, level ground. If the ladder is used for access, make sure it is extended 3 rungs above the landing. Make sure its angle is set up between 1 to 3 and 1 to 4, and it is secured at top and bottom to prevent movement. And lastly, never stand on the top 2 steps of any ladder. Make sure it's set up properly to prevent overreaching. Scaffolds must be built in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. A few basics about scaffolds. Proper mud sill is always important. Planks must be laid down for support. Base plates must be used and secured to the mud sills, and in most cases screw jacks are used for leveling. Cross braces are required both vertically and horizontally. Section ties are required between the frames. Guardrails are required if the fall hazard is greater than 8 feet, and scaffolds must also be provided with a means of access or egress, usually a ladder or possibly a tower stair. Scaffold platforms must comply with the following rules. Work platform width must be a minimum of 18 inches wide using 2-inch by 10-inch rough cut planks. When the platform is above 8 feet, it must extend from side to side of the whole scaffold, be secure in place, usually by cleating the platforms. Electrical hazards are the number 2 cause of deaths on a construction site. 60% are caused from overhead lines, so please look up. Signs must be placed at the base of all overhead wires. Ensure locates have been completed for all underground work, and remember, locates are only valid for 30 days. Ensure all electrical tools or equipment is inspected before its use and documented as per the RHG Health and Safety Manual. All electrical power used outside or in any wet areas must be protected by a ground fault circuit interrupter or a GFCI receptacle. Missing ground pins on extension cords and power tools is also a common problem. And don't forget, only certified electrical workers are allowed to perform electrical work. And all electrical workers, please remember, if you are ever standing in front of an open live electrical panel and you can see the live conductors or bus bars, you need arc flash training that will explain the hazards, and secondly, you will need proper personal protective equipment to protect you in case of an arc flash. Other killer construction hazards include blind spots from reversing vehicles or equipment. All construction vehicles or equipment with blind spots must have a trained signaler who must be wearing a tearaway traffic vest. All reversing dump trucks need an operating backup beeper. Getting crushed or struck by construction equipment is another top killer in construction. Stay clear of equipment and the entire area if you don't need to be there. And if you must be in the area, always make contact and get the signal from the operator before walking across the path of any equipment or dump trucks. Getting crushed or struck by unsecure or poorly stacked material is another cause of construction deaths, usually due to improper storage and material handling, including lumber, bricks, plywood, and other similar materials. When material storage does not appear to be safe or secure, never walk near the unsafe load and always report it to the site supervisor immediately. Always talk to the site supervisor before you unload your materials or equipment, and in any area where lifting operations are taking place, we expect the entire area to be completely barricaded off with red "Do Not Enter" tape and signs placed to warn workers not to enter the area. And this goes for any similar safety issues when there's a hazard that workers may be exposed to. You are expected to place signs and barricades to warn other workers of your hazards. With a cubic meter of average soil weighing in at about 3,500 pounds, trench cave-ins are always another cause for concern. The walls of an excavation can usually be protected in one of 3 ways: either sloped at 45 degrees to the bottom, protected by a trench box, or with an engineered shoring system. Never go into an unprotected trench or excavation. The last hazard that we want to make you aware of is invisible gases. Carbon monoxide in particular. It's odorless, invisible, it's usually slightly lighter than air. At approximately 1,000 parts per million, carbon monoxide is immediately deadly, asleep in 10 minutes and dead within 30. Think about that number, folks. 1,000 parts per million. 1/10 of 1%. That's all it takes. If you have any further questions, you can always ask your supervisor or the worker health and safety representative. And if you still have questions, you can always contact your Construction Safety Association. If something doesn't look or seem right, or if something looks unsafe, we want to encourage you to speak up and ask questions. Talk to your supervisor and or your health and safety representative about your safety concerns. Remember, the cost of accidents is far too high for those affected. Please think twice and save your life.